Making music is hard, and there's a lot of steps that need to be taken to get the idea from your head to the listener's ear. And most people give up somewhere along the way, and the project just never gets finished. And this whole music making process is really hard, especially if you do it alone. You have to not only write the song, but you have to produce it and record it and edit it and mix it and then do all the revisions to get it ready for mastering, just to realize you probably don't like the song and you gotta start over and do half of those steps over again. Oftentimes, somewhere in that cycle, I get lost as well and end up not finishing my projects. And I know I'm not the only one. I recently did a survey on the community tab on this channel where I asked you guys the question, what is the hardest part of making music? And I really wasn't surprised by the results. Exactly 50% of you said you can't seem to finish any projects. So according to this survey alone, 100% of us have the motivation we need to make music. And a large percentage of us have the gear we need to do it too. But half of us can't get the next project out the door. So finishing projects is a big barrier that a lot of us creatives have to deal with, including myself. So I just want to start the conversation and talk about a few things that could be stopping you from finishing your song, and go over a few things that I actively do to get in the habit of finishing projects. Something I've seen and experienced a lot myself is the feeling that a song is never finished. Like there's always something to tweak or just one little thing to add to make the song a little bit better. And I think as artists, we can kind of tweak our lives away and always making changes but never actually releasing a project. I heard someone say once that perfection is the enemy of delivery, which is really profound and completely rocked me when I heard it. Like you'll never be able to deliver a finished product if you're so focused on trying to make it perfect. And I'm a prime example of someone who has a hard time finishing their own projects. So about a year ago, I felt really stuck and really burnt out with all the projects I had going on. And one day I sat down and I counted. And over the last few years, not including client work, I had done partial or full productions of 77 covers and 110 originals. And only 13 of those 177 projects ever got released. And that's just audio projects. That's not including video projects that I got started and never finished. But doing client work was easy, and I was cranking out songs like crazy. But when it came to my own work, I had become so particular that the song had to be absolutely perfect before I could release it. But I never felt like I could actually finish and get a song to a perfect place. So when I went through and counted these unfinished projects, it kind of wrecked me, and I realized how big of an issue perfectionism was for me. So I moved all of those songs off of my main hard drive, and I made an agreement with myself right then that 3 things are gonna happen when I work on a song. It's gonna be a fully produced out demo that I pitch to other artists. It's gonna be a fully finished project that I release under my own artist name, or if it's not going anywhere, I'm cutting that song and I'm moving forward. And there have been very few songs or projects that I've abandoned over this last year. So as basic as it sounds, I had to realize that not every project had to be perfect. And I was the only person stopping me from releasing songs and videos. But don't rush too much, because you want to make sure that you're still proud of what you're releasing and that it's at a standard of quality that you want. I know it's hard to know when to let go of a project and to abandon it and move on, and maybe that's a topic for another video. But maybe just hold your projects a little less tight and realize that your whole career doesn't ride on this next release. The music industry and the art industry is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So stop being a perfectionist like me. Tyler said, I keep telling myself I just need this one piece of gear and then I'll start doing it, when I definitely have more than enough to write and create already. Now that hits close home to me, and I know this whole mindset of my gear isn't good enough is a mind disease that goes around to a lot of creatives. I call it Good-Gear-Itis, which kind of is a mindset creep that kind of takes your mind off the final product and gets you focused on the minutia of the creative process. You get so focused on the gear that you want or the gear that you don't have, and you let your lack of good gear justify not releasing a project. Because after all, your vocal would sound much better on this song if it had that one microphone, or your mix would be so much better if you just had those FabFilter plugins that you've always wanted. And those are good things to want, but that can't take over your whole focus. It sounds a little wrong, but oftentimes the tools that we use to make art are actually the things that prevent us from making art. Another reason that I have a hard time finishing projects sometimes is because I'm way too busy comparing my project or my skills to someone else's. I'd see all the amazing, cool things that people are out there doing, and I'd think I could never make music or videos as good as that person, or I could never sing or play guitar as good as they could. And that stuff really negatively affected my ability to just sit down and create. And every time I tried to sit down and write, I felt like I wasn't living up to this standard of perfection that I felt like all these other artists were achieving. I could never finish any projects because I was obsessed with trying to make music as good as my favorite bands. And if my song didn't sound as good or wasn't as catchy, then I wasn't happy. And this really took the joy out of making music. It wasn't until I found out that I had started this negative trend of comparison that I was able to focus on how to move forward. I ended up needing to kind of reflect back on songs that I've worked on in the past and realizing that if me from 5 years ago saw or heard any of the stuff I was working on now, I would be stoked. I had to start assessing my long-term growth, and instead of comparing myself to others, I started to compare myself to myself from 6 months ago or a year ago. And that's now how I gauge whether I'm growing and succeeding. I let my desire to be better at my craft stop me from creating and sharing and making art now. And in general, the more you create and share and make art, the more you'll grow along the way. But along that creation process, actively assess the goals that you have and the obstacles that you're going to need to overcome, and get a plan to learn the things that you're going to need to learn to achieve those goals. So don't delay your project release or tell yourself that your song isn't as good as others. Just release it because you wrote it, and people need to hear what you have inside of you. So you may not be able to finish projects because you don't like your own stuff, or because you're a perfectionist, or because you spend way too much time looking at other people's success instead of focusing on your own growth. For me, I have to regularly look at my long-term goals and set small goals that are going to help me achieve that larger aspiration. Whether it be learning a new mixing technique, or recording guitars on that one passion project, or writing a script for a YouTube video about not being able to finish projects. So set attainable goals, and don't focus so much on other people's rate of success, because you're not other people. You are you, and you are unique, and you have the control and the ability to finish whatever projects you want and do whatever you want. But don't let that overwhelm you, because you have what it takes, and sometimes you just need a little bit of encouragement and feedback from somebody else. So if you want me to check out your song and want some encouragement or feedback, my email address is down in the description. Send me your song. I would love to check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate you spending time here with me. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down, and that lets me know what kind of videos you guys are into. Subscribe if you want to stick around, and I'll see you in the next one.